It'll be good. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. MDV and I, we've been trying to get the internet working for the last little bit. And here's the dude, this is tripping me out right now. You normally live on the West Coast, now you're on the East Coast. I did have a question about that, but you switched from your home internet that was like full bars or whatever to a hotspot, and it's actually better. I'm like blown away right now because normally a hotspot's garbage.
We shall see, because you just went blurry. So I don't know what's going on right now. Maybe this has to do with the federal government shutdown. Maybe the little like mice in the wheels aren't running somewhere, and we're not getting enough juice right now.
Well, today is Veterans Day, so thank you to all the veterans out there. We appreciate everything you have done and continue to do. Um, I hope the government opens back up again. That's my goal, because we do a lot of work with the Customs and Border Protection, and hopefully our friends over there and throughout the government get back on track. But that's right around the corner, I think. That's what I hear. So we'll see.
I think it's going to open back up today. I hope so, because I have to fly back to the West Coast on Thursday, and on Monday I heard that there were 2,000 flights canceled and 7,000 flight delays. So fingers crossed that I'm not sitting in the airport overnight on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm flying on Sunday, and so we'll see how that one goes. But hopefully it's back up. Dude, so it's funny. You're on the East Coast right now. I have to get your opinion on this. I asked you this earlier, but I didn't get to hear your response because you basically blurred out. My mother-in-law is from New York, and she is fully convinced. So, like, she doesn't drink tap water here in California. She doesn't like whatever. But in New York, when it comes to the bagels and also the pizza, she's convinced it's because of the water. Are you convinced of that too?
Completely convinced. I think it comes with the birthright of being born in the New York area, in and around the tri-state, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, that you firmly believe that the water has a impact on the bagels and the pizza. The other thing is that my mom told me that the only tap water she'll drink is the tap water from our home here, just like Liz said before we were recording. So there's something in the water for sure.
Oh man. Well, today I should have started off with this. Today we're going to dive into some rules of engagement in regards to relationships, and the inspiration for this came from I was listening to, I want to say it's a podcast, but it's a podcast from the 1122 Church, the Church of 1122. I had never really heard of it. I
Mm.
got sent this series, and it's the series of Stand Firm and Act Like a Man series. I think that's, let me double check, but that's basically what the series is called, is Stand Firm and Act Like a Man. And so I
Is it
went through
a
okay.
non-denominational Christian type of church? Is it a
Yeah, it's like a Christian church, and the pastor's up there, and he went to seminary, and but he's kind of, for what it's worth, if anybody goes and checks out this 1122 church, I think the guy, for being like a mega church, there's
Mm.
some things he says that come off a little bit like, I don't know, but I think his heart's in the right place. He's trying to really make an impact. But the message, if you if you listen to the whole thing and you go back to the message, I think what he's trying to get across is great. Some of the things he says, I'm like, I don't know if I would have worded it that way, but it's fine, right? So I still
Mm.
got inspiration from it. And one of the pieces of inspiration I got was about matching the mode, which you actually put match the mode. I was thinking like match the energy, but same idea. And basically, what this gentleman was saying was like, if your partner shares a fact, respond with a fact or logic, right? And if she shares a feeling, respond with a feeling or empathy, not trying to give a fact or a solution. And I sat on that for a little bit. I go inside, I go to Ashley. I was like, hey, so I'm just listening because this is like early morning. I was like doing
Yeah.
cardio. I was listening to this. And the pastor's like, now listen, man, when your wife, says this, don't respond with this or whatever. So I come inside. I was like, Ashley, I got this great feedback from this. What do you think about this? She goes, Jason, you could do that a lot. She goes, and I was like, when is an example of when I didn't do that? And she goes, a perfect example is when I wake up in the morning and I say, hey, I don't feel great today. And your response is, yeah, well, you should have gone to sleep earlier last night.
Yeah. You hit her with
Right.
those hard facts right away.
And so but it was such a perfect example, right? Like she's
Yeah.
coming there saying, "Hey, I don't feel great today." And instead of me being like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I could do to support?" I immediately go to, "Well, dude, like, yeah, you didn't sleep good last night. You went to bed way too late. You watched a show." And that was a perfect example of matching the mode or not matching the mode. So I want to
Yeah.
talk about that as like the first rule of engagement. I think could be good. I got the inspiration from this pastor a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, at least on the surface, it sounds like something that I think we could benefit from as men and as partners. And I think a lot of this is going to come down to just truly listening to your partner, like really listening, and then not just responding with whatever you think the solution is. One of the most valuable things that I've ever heard in communication with a partner is when you're talking and your partner is expressing themselves to you. There's times when they just want you to listen, and they want to vent, and they don't want advice or solutions, or they don't want, how can I fix this right away? They just want to get that thing off their chest. And maybe it's emotional based, and maybe it's a mix of facts or whatever, but I've made this mistake more times than I can count. And talking to partners throughout my dating life is I'm quick to offer solutions, and I'm a little less quick to just listen and understand. And one of the things that I found can be helpful is one of the first things after you listen is you just literally ask. You say, "Hey, do you want me to just listen and be there for you right now and be a shoulder for you, or do you want me to help work through this with you and help provide or find a solution?" And I think that that's like, if you can do that, that's next level type of communication, because a lot of times, at least for me, I want to try to get to the solution really quickly, but it's not always that easy.
Dude, it's not, and I've had to really lean on that. So for all the guys listening, this is my takeaway. Ash and I have been together 25 years.
Wow.
Um, and when you try and guys are okay, so this is where guys and girls are dramatically different in my opinion. I show up to the men's club, some guys like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or "This is my problem." And he's expecting, like if MDV comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, dude, um, I I spend too much time on my phone." Let's just say that's an example. And I'm like, and I say, "Well, how does that make you feel?" Or something like that. Like if I try and like respond with some type of like just okay, like listening, MDV's not telling me, "Hey, I spend too much time on my phone," for me to like hear him out. He's saying
Mm,
that with the intention of like, "Hey, bro, what insight do you have? How can you help me with this problem I have?" Right?
yeah.
And which is very like for me, and it's like, yeah, clear cut. Like, "Hey, bro, I got this problem. Can you help me with a solution?" Okay, Roger that. Whereas oftentimes with Ashley, it's like, "Hey, I this is going on." She doesn't want me to try and fix it. She just wants to
Yeah.
express how she's feeling. And so that's why this pastor, I think, nailed it so well. Like,
Yeah.
if she shares a feeling, respond with a feeling. If she shares a fact, respond with a fact. And I was like, damn, dude, that is good. That's
Yeah.
really good. Like I'm taking that with me. So that's the inspiration today on number one tip for rules of engagement.
Yeah, I think that that's really valuable, man. I think a lot of this oftentimes comes down to like learning the lesson kind of the hard way. And I don't think, at least through a lot of the conversations that I've had with my partners, and I'm not trying to aggravate them or make them feel like I'm not listening. A lot of times my brain just tends to go to a more kind of solution oriented type of conversation. I think that that's just part of my education as, going to law school, and also as like, I think a man, I think you're trying to fix things and then kind of handle the emotions afterwards. Um, but the thing, you can't keep doing it over and over and over again. Like if your partner is expressing to you that, hey, this isn't how I want to be communicated with, and you keep providing solutions or facts when they're providing feelings, I think that's going to lead to maybe a deeper wedge, or more strife, in terms of that person doesn't feel like they can communicate with you about these things anymore, right? Like there's only so many times somebody's going to come to you. Then if you don't change your mode of communication, or if you don't match the proper mode, maybe they stop coming to you at a certain point, right? And then that leads to a whole nother set of problems.
Well, because it makes them feel worse, right? Like again, the example is Ashley wakes up in the morning, she's not feeling good, right? well, she's not even going to say anything to me anymore because I'm going to try and immediately try and solve the problem or whatever. She just
Exactly.
wants to express, hey, I don't feel good. She wants me to be like,
Exactly.
okay, I'm here for you. Let me go take the kids to school or whatever it is. Like, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I think that that one really hit home for me. And I would encourage all the guys on here, if you haven't gone and checked out that 1122, I think I called it, series, again, I think some of these things, like, the spirit of them is great. Like, just listen to it and just be like, all right, what can I take away from this? Like, another
Mm,
example that I actually brought up this morning. So I was listening to it again this morning, really early. And one of the keys that they brought up was this idea that um, it was, again, based on the Bible, was like men shouldn't be lazy. And, and, you should be hardworking. And I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm like, okay, like, let's go. And so this morning, Caden trained super hard. Like, dude, he crushed it. And so I
Yeah.
come
So you
back
guys
into the
did
house.
DT this morning.
Yeah. So the way it works now is he starts with me and then we go for about 40 minutes with him. And then I finish up like 20 more minutes of like just some stuff that I want to get done. So I came back into the house. He had already taken a shower or whatever it was. I was like, bro, dude, you busted your butt to get it today. That was awesome. I was like, hey, I was listening to a pastor this morning. They were talking about how the Bible talks about being, hardworking and not lazy. And I just want to say, like, dude, you are not hard. You are hardworking and not being lazy this morning. And anyways, and Ashley comes up, she's like, "Yeah, I don't think you have that problem." She goes, "If anything, you could be a little bit more lazy at times. Like you're a little bit too much on the over the top." But it's an example of another thing that I was listening to this morning about like what the Bible says about being a man. And I think that you could take that for what it's worth. You could be faith based or not, but it's like, dude, to not be lazy. Okay, that's a good characteristic to have.
Mm.
Um, and anyways,
Well,
that,
one of the things that came up when I was kind of drafting some notes for this podcast, it's funny you brought that up, is I really do think, and this is just my personal belief, I think that when you're in a relationship with somebody, showing up your best is part of your responsibility in that relationship. And that not only means doing the things that you know you need to do, right? Like whether that's part of your household chores, whether that's part of the jobs around the house, whatever those things, not sitting on your butt while things need to be done that I think, a man has the responsibility to do in a lot of ways. But also I think that there comes down to this personal responsibility and this like what you owe your partners, you owe them eating well. You owe them working your body, not only for the physical things that it can do to your body to keep you, well muscled and keep you athletic and lean and strong and being able to be not only there and capable in case things happen, but be attractive to your partner, but also the long-term health outcomes are well documented for people who are eating highly nutritious food, who are exercising on a regular basis, right? Like that is what in the long run will turn out to be the most unselfish thing that you could do for your partner, as opposed to drowning yourself in endless amounts of calories or, over consuming alcohol or whatever other things might take you off the path. I think that when you're in a relationship, and you certainly owe it to yourself too, but a lot of times when we're looking at accountability, you're looking to somebody else to help you stay accountable towards your goals. And I think it's a perfect example in a relationship. You owe it to your partner to do these things well and to not be lazy about them.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it gets harder and harder as you get older, right? So, like, think about when you get in a relationship and it's the first, when you're courting them or whatever, and then like a year in, and 2 years in, and 5 years in, and 10 years in, all of a sudden it gets easier and easier and easier. And we brought this up on the last actually train hard virtual call.
Yeah.
Was a gentleman who's been married for 50 years, and his feedback was like, basically he was alluding to like the grass isn't always greener because lust is definitely another, that's the enemy trying to get at you, right? The enemy is
Yeah.
trying to get at you and create this idea of lust. And um what he's saying is the grass isn't always greener, the grass is green where you water it. And this gentleman, his name's Gary, shining that perspective for me was really powerful, just because there's little nuggets each week that we bring on these virtual train hard men's clubs where it's like, hey, what's something that's impacting my life? And for example, I already brought up the pastor, but this gentleman from last week's call was about this idea of like watering, like, dude, people want to be quick to kind of like move to the next thing, but are you really doing everything you can within your current relationship, right, to water that? And that's what I was thinking about too. And so shout out to Gary, 50 years married, who shined that light on last week's Train Hard Men's Club call, because I do think a lot of guys got something away from that, and that was key.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly took something away from that. And I know in the past, you and I have had discussions like this, and you brought this up many times. You have to continue to date your partner across the long run, right? I think the natural inclination when you first get into a relationship or you're courting somebody who you have interest in is to, I don't want to say go over the top and love bomb them and tell them and promise them all these amazing things, but you're putting in a ton of effort, right? You want to have this person as a part of your life. You want to see if they can be a long-term fit for you. You're very interested in them. Oftentimes you're taking them out on dates, you're writing them notes, you're doing little things for them. And I think part of the lazy equation that you brought up before is that you might, through time and maybe as the relationship goes on, forget to do those things or neglect to do those things as much as you once did. And I'm not saying that maybe that initial honeymoon phase pace is sustainable forever, but even reflecting myself, like there are times when you can initiate a date night. You can write a note to your partner in the morning if you're taking off for work early. Like all that stuff goes such a long way for the person that's in the relationship with you to just let them know that you're thinking about them as you go about your everyday life. And you don't have to set an unrealistic standard where it's done every single day or every single moment you're constantly in contact with them, but like to do it at a reasonable amount of time to let this person know that like, hey, you're meaningful to me. I think goes a really long way. And obviously your actions always speak louder than just your words. So if
And
you're
you
not
get it
backing
back
it,
too.
what's up?
Well, you know what I mean? Like, it's a two-way street. I think
Oh,
that,
for sure.
everybody has different languages and different whatever, but dude, I'm telling you, like, having the exposure I do to hundreds, if not thousands of men on a weekly basis, like, the things that I hear, the things that I that people talk to me about, they all go back to communication, and they all go back to, like, dude, that like, there's an enemy that's trying to come. And the enemy is trying to impact your relationships. It's trying to attack you so that you become a different version of yourself that you look back 10 years from now. And that's not
Mm,
something that you are going to be, take pride in. And
mm,
you have to work diligently to not allow that to creep in. And I think surrounding yourself with like-minded men who want to be the best version of themselves, I think is key. And then I
yeah,
think asking yourself on a regular basis, like even after this podcast, be like, dude, like, hey, what are some areas that I could improve on just some communication with my spouse? And dude, that's something I try and think about on a regular basis because, dude, there's no do over here, right? Like I'm in it for life, and the quicker I can make adjustments, the the quicker that wedge can start to come back together again. But if over time it grows and grows and grows, it's very difficult to bring that back together again. And
yeah,
so, asking yourself, like, in this rules of engagement that we were talking about, like, are you matching the mode, right? That's, like, number 1. I think that's so easy for me to, like, mess up, Like, it's so easy because you're gonna wanna be a problem solver and this and that. You gotta be like, "Hey, what is she really trying to say?" And just let it go, right? And the second thing we wrote down, listen like you train. Sometimes the goal isn't to fix or win, it's just to be present. I think that's really important. Like, it kinda goes hand in hand with what you were
for
talking
sure.
about, right? Where, like, I think we have this natural inclination, but you're gonna treat your relationships with guys different than you're gonna treat your relationship with your spouse, right? Um, they have different needs, and that's important. And then, you were just alluding to this, so I'll just bring it up. It's like keep dating her. Effort doesn't stop once you're comfortable. Keep pursuing her, and I think that's really true. And that's probably the hardest thing. Um, it's hard, and I think that you could. The best way to look at it is to put like training MVV. So like you compete in your surfing competition, right? Or your body surfing competition. I'm setting up some shooting competitions, and those are really helpful because they keep us on track. Like, all right, dude,
Mm,
I got this body surfing competition coming up in whatever, and so then you kind of work backwards from it. It's the same idea with kind of like dating your spouse. What you could do is you could put things on the calendar, like, hey, a month from now we're doing this. A month from now we're doing this. And I think what it does, it just makes you mindful that like, hey, you have these things that are locked in, and then you can work back from them. Hey, like we know we're going to Vegas a month from now. Well, maybe we could set up a few other like micro dates to talk about the trip or talk about what we're going to do or whatever. I think those are like little just like little nuggets you could put out there to make sure
Yeah.
you stay on the same course together, you know?
And it keeps you and your partner invested and engaged and feeling excited about something that's coming. I mean, I think that that's, an obvious way to build some good momentum. One of the things that you brought up that I want to get into is the idea of lust. And it made me think about, I have something written on my bathroom mirror at home in Oceanside right now, and it says, what do I want right now versus what do I really want long term? And I think that there's a lot of parallels between I think you can make a parallel between like kind of cheating on your diet and maybe having a wandering eye or potentially going down a really bad path with stepping out on your partner. I'm not saying that they're in the same category whatsoever, but I'm just saying they pull at you in a similar way. And the thing that you have to be mindful of with both your nutrition, if you have a goal, and then your relationship, if you have a goal, is that you can ruin your relationship very quickly. It doesn't take a whole lot to ruin your relationship. We talked a lot about this actually when we were doing a lot of coaching development, right? In terms of your reputation as a coach. You can ruin your reputation in 10 seconds, but it takes you 10 years to build a really strong reputation and relationship. And it's one of those things that you just have to be stronger than whatever that urge is that like is pulling at you. That thing that you want right now, or the thing that is making you think you want it right now, you don't really want it right now, right? You don't really want to be tearing Twinkies open at 10 o'clock at night after you spent the whole day being super disciplined with your diet, and you're like 2 weeks into this thing, and now all of a sudden you ate a whole box of whatever, right? You wake up the next morning, you feel like shit.
Right.
You can make the similar parallel here to whatever you want to put in place there with the behaviors that you might see, and there's a whole different spectrum of behaviors, but um
That's
a
a
lot
great
of it I think
analogy.
comes down, it's discipline,
No,
right?
it's a really
Discipline
good
and
analogy.
loyalty.
Obviously, those are pretty, you know, there's
Of
context to
course,
everything.
they're very
But
different.
no, I think you're actually hitting the nail on the head because I think that urge is probably similar, right? Like, hey, you've committed to this long-term plan of trying to eat a certain way and exercise a certain way. And then again, according to this pastor, he really talked about lust pretty in depth. He was talking about,
Mm,
the sins that attack men. And he's like, listen, he talked about all the different ones. And he said the number one, he goes, the granddaddy of them all, he's like, is lust. Lust is the one that's ruined more relationship than anybody else for guys. And he went on and articulated it in a much more powerful way. He actually went on to say that him and his wife had been married for like 25 years or whatever. He says that being the pastor of a mega church obviously drives attention towards him, and that he will not travel alone ever. So that's like the guardrail that he created for himself, kind of like, I guess, equating it to food, right? Where like if you know that you have this desire to, I don't know, go off the rails at 10 o'clock at night, you can
don't
create a
have it in the
guardrail where you don't even
house.
buy the food. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
don't have it in the house if you can't control yourself, right?
right, right. And so he was talking about that. And I think there's a lot of parallels there with, what you said. So on your mirror, it's like what, give up what you want today for the, say it again, what you were saying?
What I actually have right now is just a question to myself. It's what is it that you think you want right now versus what you want long term?
Yeah. So there you go, right? And that's a super interesting analogy, and it's just timely for me because I'm listening to that pastor talk about it being like the granddaddy of it all, and I feel like I have unique perspective because I do talk to a lot of men, but this guy has an even more unique perspective because he has thousands of people coming to his church every day. So
Mm.
that's yeah. I like
Well,
that
and
food
and again,
analogy.
I'm not comparing the two in terms of being similar in stepping out on your diet is very different than stepping out on your relationship. I just want to make sure I'm underscoring that. But I think we can all relate. to the idea that at whatever hour at night, you just sometimes you just if nobody's watching, nobody's watching, and that's the thing that gets tough with nutrition. To be honest with you, is you get bored, your mind starts to wander, and instead of making good solid decisions, you make decisions that the next morning you wake up at. And I know this because like I've been through the ringer with nutrition with these things. It's hard for me to have these things around. And I think that we can all take a lot of lessons from that in a lot of the other things that we do. Just knowing what you want long term, and this thing that's calling to you right now that you might think you want with every fiber of your being. If you're going to regret it, don't do it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think you've obviously, reinst like, um, I just like drawing the parallels between those type of that type of pool, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that's really interesting. So we talked about match the mode. We talked about listen like you train, keep dating her, which is critical. You talked about this, and I think the stay attractive part, I do think that matters, right? Where you want to, and I don't think it's fair to have a double standard, right? Like if you are in a relationship with your wife and you want her to take care of herself, right? Like for example, I want my wife to take care of herself primarily because I want her around for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
Like I I want her to be physically fit and capable and do all the things, and I want her to feel comfortable in her own body, all those things. But mostly, selfishly, I want her to be around so we could both be kicking ass when we're in our 80s, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that if that's your intention as a guy, well then what are, you got to back up if that's what you feel, if you feel that way about your wife, then you have to be doing the same thing that you're asking of her, right? Otherwise, that's not fair. And
Yeah.
if you find yourself off the path, we're gonna have a lot of ways to get you back on the path. Like, and we're gonna have a lot of ways to help other men get back on the path. Like, if you're listening to this show right now, you're like, dude, I'm on the path. I got you, bro. Like, I agree with everything you're saying. Great. Well, then we're gonna give you guys some resources to help other men get back on the path. Actually, Liz, if we could link the 2-week Kickstart program right in the podcast show notes today, I think that's a great step. It's a free PDF. It's like the easiest thing ever. You just click on it and boom, you get a free 2-week PDF of Kickstart. Just send it to a friend who's like wanting to get back on the path. And then coming up in January is something even more in depth. But that's a great first step if you know a guy who's, kind of fallen off a little bit and wants to get back on.
What are this is a little bit off topic. I think that the Kickstart program is fantastic. Obviously, me and you worked heavily on that. It's 2 weeks. It's made for people who need to get 2 weeks to knock the rust off, to just start feeling good, to get back into the right way of thinking mentally, physically, emotionally. But I wanted to ask you what are your thoughts on couples therapy? And it might not be you don't have to answer this as this is too personal, but like have you explored this in your own relationship as something that's been meaningful for you and Ashley to, improve your communication, get through hard times? I know that the stereotype for a lot of guys, and I think that this is probably changing as therapy is becoming more kind of widely accepted and the tools are more available. But, 20 years ago, even beyond that, like our parents' generation, it just wasn't
Didn't
really a thing that was talked about a whole lot. So I participate in personal therapy, personal development therapy, but I'm not actively in a couples therapy right now. But have you explored that, or have you gone through any of that, based on any of the things that you guys have gone through?
No, I mean, that's a good question. So, one, I want to say, if you are with a girl right now or a guy, and you are not even like close to getting married or having kids, and you already require couples therapy, I would just encourage you to take a deep breath and just sit on that for a moment.
Mm,
Once you make the commitment to get married, life only gets more complicated when you get kids. Like having children just adds more complexity to life. And I think that you need to make sure that you have your relationship centered. So if you are already having to go do those things, I'm not saying that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I would just encourage you to like, life will only get more complicated and more challenging. So if you're already having trouble
mm,
when you're just dating, I would be mindful of that if I was you. So okay, now that that's said, um, we have both explored different types of therapies just over the years because of like all our life circumstances.
yeah.
But Ashley and I, we have done joint stuff because of like we've done family therapy because of like situations with our family, but
Yeah.
not just her and I. And I think I actually would say that because we've had so much like different types of trauma just over the years, especially starting off. I mean, dude, when Ava got
Your
leukemia,
daughter's
we
almost,
were,
yeah.
let me see. I'm 40 now. She was 4 or 5. So I was 30, right? Ashley was 29. I was 30 when Ava got leukemia. And so that's a really pivotal moment in your life where it required us to really go through a lot of like self reflection and
Yeah.
growth together. And so that I think actually catapulted us together. Um, and so we haven't required it like I think that because we've had so many like kind of really difficult conversations and moments, we've learned to communicate in a more effective way. So we haven't had to have
Mm,
someone there to help us with that because it was almost forced upon us when we're spending months in the hospital. You know what I mean?
mm.
So for that experience, I'm actually grateful for that because it has brought our relationship in terms of communicating about difficult things. Um, we're pretty good at it because we were forced into this, and then other life circumstances have
Yeah.
caused us to even do that even further. You know,
Yeah.
but I would say, I mean, like I
What were you
wouldn't.
gonna say?
I'm not doing it. I think it's really important for couples. Um, I think if it helps them, dude, I would go do it. And if you're a guy out there and your wife wants to go do it, like, dude, bro, if your wife is asking you to go do something, just go do it.
Yeah.
Check your ego at the door. I mean, I get messages all the time from guys who are talking about relationships, and oftentimes there's a lot of deflection. And I think that I would encourage you guys to take it, in the words of Jocko, like just extreme ownership in it. Like, hey, what role did I play? Like, that's why when I get these emails from guys in general, I reply back with like, dude, how can you communicate this better? And
Yeah.
then I ask myself that same thing about situations in my life, right? Like, hey, if I had sent this email, what would that guy have said? He probably would have said, hey man, you can communicate better. And so I would encourage guys that if your wife is giving you signals, go, dude, just go talk to somebody.
Yeah. And, you know, this is not earth-shattering news. Relationships take work. I think relationship, right? Like, that should be the title of this podcast, Relationships Take Work, and, breaking news headlines. Um, but I do think that if the tools exist, and like in particular, if you think that there are gaps in the relationship because of whether it's your own personal pasts or traumas or combined traumas or communication gaps, that having a third party there, an unbiased third party that's able to help navigate some very difficult conversations, especially if the conversations can on a regular basis get very, very tense. I think it can be very helpful. I just think that there's a lot of good that can come from having somebody help guide both parties toward, a mutual, I don't want to say reconciliation, but kind of coming together and figuring out how to work through things. Um, the
Yeah,
process of,
and seeing it from a detached perspective, right? Like,
yeah,
we talk about the echelon front stuff about like detaching from your ego, your emotion, your perspective. And I think that a third party has comes to it from a different lens, you know?
yeah.
That's another reason why I think, guys, dude, go find a local men's group. Go join our virtual calls. We're rolling out tons of locations because guys will give you a different perspective than you probably have, you know?
Well, that's another good point. I think that there's obviously related elements there, that the health of your own life and your own, mental health, emotional health outside of your relationship matters a whole lot, how you show up in the relationship, right? And one of the things that we've talked about a lot over the past couple of years is the fact that men don't traditionally have a lot of outlets outside of work and their family, right? And, maybe they have church and maybe they go to the gym, but sometimes the conversations that happen at those other places don't extend to the depth that you might need them to allow for growth and development and connection. And that's one of the coolest things I think about what you've done in Los Gatos. And one of the things that I think a lot of these new men's clubs, that, 10 to 15 new men's clubs that are going to be announced very soon, that there's going to be a depth of relationship that can develop where over time, and when trust is built, you can start to ask some of these questions to people who have maybe been through something similar or have a different perspective or can help guide you. And one of the things that it sticks out for me that you said a few weeks back was that and you even just said it right now and how you're responding to the emails is that oftentimes and most of the time your response is how can you step up and first try to be better? How can you figure out how to help solve this problem as opposed to, you know, placing blame on your spouse or your partner, your wife, you know?
Yeah. Well, this week on our virtual Train Our Men's Club. So if you listen to this podcast and you're not on our 6 a.m. Pacific time Thursday, right? Virtual Men's Club, you got to be on it. Um, the goal of that is to pull men up. You know, in a world where constantly, if you open your phone, it's going to be a lot of AI, negativity, whatever. There's no AI, there's no recording. It's just dudes getting together and trying to lift each other up. And I got a gentleman coming on this week, Thursday, um, and he's going to talk about this concept of it's not about me, it's about us. Be about us. And this gentleman lost his son when he was 27. His son was 27, and the goal is to pull people in with unique perspectives like this. I don't know what that feels like, and I hope to never know what that feels like. But this gentleman does. And he could give us some insight on lessons learned, how he got through that. And I'm just going to pull him on the screen for what, 5 minutes, MDV, and have him share a little nugget. And these 30-minute calls are all about that. Just like, come
Yeah.
on, get a nugget, get fired up, move on with your day. In a world that's constantly trying to distract you, we're trying to zone you in. And that's also what this podcast can be about, man. Like, dude, lifting guys up, lifting people up, representing positivity, and breaking through the noise in a very noisy world is what this podcast is going to do. And Thursday calls are just an extension of that.
Yeah, and we certainly don't have all the answers. I for sure know that I don't have all the
Yeah,
answers.
me
And a
neither.
lot of times when I'm talking through these conversations, I'm even thinking about things for myself about how I can be better. How can I live this list of 5 things that we wrote down as rules of engagement for relationships? Am I living up to those things in my next relationship, you know, and how I'm dealing with my own friends, my own family, and all these things. And I think the most beautiful thing about these men's calls is that it's been a complete open forum. And it's not just talking at people the whole time and lecturing. And there's a lesson that's delivered. There's an opportunity to celebrate wins. There's people who raise their hand, who come on the screen and share. Like we said, we're going to have Gary on this week at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And they've been great. I think this is going to be our seventh call so far, right? Seventh virtual men's
Yeah.
club call.
Yeah, yeah. So, seventh virtual men's club will be coming up on Thursday at 6 a.m. Again, the intention of those is not to be recorded. Like, we want you there, we want you present, we want you to share your wins. So, if you're not on our emails, if you're not check, again, podcast show notes, check out the PDF, send it to a friend. Join our virtual Train Our Men's Club list, and you'll get multiple emails a week. Just the Zoom link. Everything is free. Everything is about pulling guys up. Like that's all we're doing. And I believe that if we stay mission focused long term, it's going to pay huge dividends for everybody involved. We're going to see a generational shift, and it's going to happen. So just to reiterate some of these rules of engagement and some of these things that we believe are important is that match the mode. That's my number one takeaway for today. If you
That's
don't
a good one.
hear anything else, just hear that one. Listen like you train. Keep dating her. That's great. Stay attractive, right? And then don't coast. And I think that if you find yourself coasting, set yourself some pillars. And I think that using competition as an analogy, I am about to sign up for. So I have quite a bit of travel lined up for just work stuff that we're doing. But I am going to sign up for a shooting competition soon, like the tactical games, if not the tactical games, and that will keep me um, not getting complacent. Like I'm not going to coast because I want to improve my skills so I can show up there and do great. Same idea, right? If you don't want to coast in your relationship, set yourself up for some of these like benchmarks. Like, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I do better about that? And Ashley likes to travel. Ashley loves to go out and go have great food. And I need to do a better job prioritizing those things. And I know that. And so if I can get them on the calendar ahead of time, then I know that I'm already locked in. It's like your training splits, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, those are the 5 things we want to go over today with the intention, period, of pulling guys up. And yeah. And I hope women who listen to this are like, yeah, hell yeah, I want all those things, you know?
For sure. That last one hits hard for me too. We didn't really talk a whole lot about it, but even just thinking about like if you've built a good hedge for fitness and you start taking a few days off, there's nothing wrong with that. There's
Mm,
nothing wrong with learning to relax and chilling out a little bit, but you can't let it go weeks, months, years. And if you relate that analogy to your relationship, you can very easily see that, hey, you don't have to maybe every single day be going out to dinner or having date night. But if you don't have a date night every once in a while, it's going to start to add up. And I think that it's really important to not coast and to not be lazy. We actually did talk about it. I correct myself. We did talk about it in relation to not being lazy.
dude, 100%. Hey, by the way, I don't know if I was on the right microphone this whole time. I don't know.
You sound wonderful. You look great. Train hard
Oh,
hat,
well,
looking
all right.
looking awesome. At some point, I sent this over as one of the notes. We have to talk about this little league sign stealing scandal that came up. I don't know if you saw this, but how they have kids, I guess, aged like 10 or 12 or something, right around Caden's age. And I guess they're a team that might be heading toward Williamsport, the Cooperstown tournament. And they got caught sign stealing from second base, passing the 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 signals from the catcher to the hitter. And what a terrible example. How could you set a worse example if you're a little league coach? You obviously know what's going on. You have to know. And like it just blew my mind that like at any it honestly, it doesn't blow my mind because people are crazy about youth sports, but like it does make my mind and heart hurt a little bit that you have these kids engaged in a sign stealing scandal to make it to the
Well,
next level in little league. It's crazy.
it is crazy, and it happened to us 2 weeks ago. So,
Oh my
Caden's
goodness.
yeah, Caden's catcher, right? And he gets sent signs from his, coach, like
Yep.
and at this level, right, they probably have, what, 3 pitches, right? Uh, if that, 2 or 3 pitches, and they have an off speed, they have a fastball, and something else, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so the guy will give a sign to Caden. Caden will give a sign on where to place it and what pitch to the pitcher, right? Well, the coach on third base was reading the signs because after a while you kind of like figure it out, right?
Yeah, you can pick
That
it
that
up.
yeah, and so he was telling the batter like, "Hey, you got a fastball coming. Hey, you got a whatever a curveball coming."
Crazy.
And our coach was like, "Bro, like,
Yeah.
come on, like, come on, like, really, like."
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's we have a tournament this weekend, and I'll have to catch up with you next week about it. But yeah, I could share more on that whole thing. I wish we could have recorded a little bit earlier because I want to talk a little bit more about this. We could talk about
We'll
it
get
next
into it.
episode, but the but at the end of the day, it's like what does that represent for the kids, right?
For sure.
It's
That's
like
that's the most important thing. What
it's like
lesson are you teaching the kids here?
yeah, and like, cause I actually think it would be a better lesson if the kid's like, "Hey, I could see the signs, whatever," and he's like, Dude, we don't look at the signs. Like, we're here to play baseball. Like, like we're not here to steal their signs so we can try and have a, you know what I mean? It's like it's a shady way to win."
Yeah, it would be a whole different story if like the pitcher was doing something with his hat or his glove, he was tipping a pitch and like the kids kind of figured it out. But for the coaches to be involved to pass the information to the kids at home plate is crazy. To have like a 40-year-old adult stealing the signs, it blows my mind. But anyway, we'll
Yeah.
have to get into that and we'll have to get into all of this Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL. It's all coming to a really interesting head with a lot of allegations of like um game fixing and things that are happening. There's the FBI is going deep into sports betting and game fixing right now, but next
See, I don't
episode.
I don't know anything about that, so I'm looking forward to hearing about it. I don't keep up on it much, but I do know that sports betting has just became more and more prevalent, and with that, obviously, becomes a bunch of stuff. But
Hell yeah.
MDV, I appreciate you. Everybody who's listening, appreciate all of you guys. Check out the podcast show notes for that PDF, the 2-week Kickstarter. Send it out to a friend. Make sure to sign up for our virtual Train Hard Men's Clubs that happen on Thursday. Dude, join those. Come in, get fired up, and get on with the rest of your day. And have an awesome one.
Let's go.